All right. So I'm just gonna share the screen
Okay.
and pull up this video, and we can just get your feedback on it and just tell us
Yeah.
what you think.
Yeah.
Um, can you see it?
Yep. I can see it.
All right.
Cool.
And you can do like a play by play, or just watch the whole thing and go over it after.
Um, let's watch through at least a little bit of it first, and
Okay.
then so so I actually you had asked me if I had seen this before, and I said no, but actually I looked up. I have this book, and it has pictures of this in the
Really?
book. So I got to show you this too. And now, like, all of this started clicking for me of how this is working with the water, how it's going into these different shapes, and how it's related to harmonics. So it's so cool that each shape is going corresponding to the next harmonic.
Uh,
That's so amazing. So you have 3 points on the water, and then for the fourth harmonic, you have 4 points on the water, and going up to the next harmonic. And this is so amazing too that they're showing it with the drop levitated too. So
hmm
it's at I mean it's showing so much actually because the drop is being levitated, it's showing also the force and power of sound and being in a standing wave and how it can levitate objects actually. So cool. So it keeps going consecutively, like adding another point on the star with the next harmonic. So let me show you what I found
Okay.
in this book. This is so I love this book. If you don't have it,
No, I've never seen it, but
it's in
I'm really interested in the cymatics and
yes, this is
but
all
the
about
the technical side of it, I'm completely lost to.
yeah. So it's actually it's something that musicians don't really learn about either, because it's getting more like into mathematics.
Yeah.
So it gets a little complicated. So I have a picture of um, in here, they talk about that the water drops and the star shaped water.
There they are.
Yeah. So this is so interesting. So what I realized was that this is also happening on the strings of an instrument. So like if you have a guitar, you see the same pattern. So let me show you a graph and you can kind of see that this would be similar. Can you see that?
Yep.
So the first harmonic, as it's resonating on the string, it breaks it into two. The second harmonic or the third harmonic, it breaks it into three. You see how it begins to follow the harmonics as well
Yeah.
on the string. So that is, it's happening in other matter also. So we're seeing it on the video, you're seeing it in water, but
hmm
it's also, you can see it in a string, in a
hmm
resonating string, which you can imagine like on a guitar. And if this is a picture, an example of them
Yeah.
resonating all at once, so all the harmonics, and you see there's a pattern on the string, um, what it would potentially look like if all harmonics were resonating.
hmm
So, so I had some definitions because you kind of have to know what are harmonics. You kind of have to know like what is resonance and to order to understand
Right.
all of that. So, um,
And
mhm.
I guess, yeah, you want to just, what would be, I guess, what would be your definition of what the harmonic actually is?
So I have something that we can look at because it's really clear. So I can just share the screen here. Okay, do you see that?
Yep.
So when musicians use the term overtone series, they are generally referring to a set of frequency components that appear above a musical tone. The related term harmonic series is a more precisely defined concept with applications in both music and mathematics. So here's where we get into we're combining fields of both mathematics and music. So it's not just, we have to understand the mathematics behind it. So let me stop share on this. So when we hear a note, we think that we're hearing just one note, but actually there's harmonics and overtones that are coming off of that note, that are playing off of that note, that are sounding. But because of how we perceive sound, our brain kind of puts it into a texture of a sound. So my voice sounds different than your voice because of the overtones that are sounding in my voice. And this is an example of how overtones give a shape or a timbre to a sound. So timbre is the quality or the quality of the sound. It gives it its characteristic. So so there is always a sound within a sound, a note within a note. But when we perceive, like say one note, here, I have the guitar. See if you can I'm just gonna play one note. So this is an E, and you think you're just hearing one pitch, right? But actually there's many frequencies and overtones above that fundamental note of this E. So this is called the harmonic overtone series, or the overtone series. And these frequencies above the fundamental are all related mathematically. So if we, let me see. I'm going to share this again with you. So okay. So though musicians sometimes use these terms interchangeably, the term harmonic series specifically refers to a series of numbers related by whole number ratios. For example, the series of frequencies 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, etc., given in hertz, is a harmonic series. Okay, so you have a series of notes above the fundamental, and they follow a pattern. So if you want to look at what overtone is specifically, an overtone is one of the frequency components of a sound other than that of the lowest frequency. Okay, so it's one of the frequency components of the sound. So it takes a while for all this to sink in, but so if I have my note, I have E here. The next harmonic above it is going to be an octave above it. Okay, so here you hear an E, but this is an E also, but it's an octave above, and it's related mathematically. It's a 1-to-2 ratio. So these are all related. This note is related mathematically to the fundamental. So each note in the harmonic series will go in the same pattern. So the first note in the harmonic series will be the octave. And then the next one will be the fifth. The next one will be another octave above that, and the next one will be the third. So So we have the E, we have an E here, but these are different. They're the same note, but they're different frequencies. So
Okay.
is that like starting to make sense? So the harmonic series, whatever pitch you pick, you can pick any note, you can pick a different note, you can pick an A, then the first note in the series is going to be the octave above it. And then it's going to be the fifth, and then it's going to be the next octave, and then it's going to be the third. And this series, we're not hearing it. If I just play an A, I'm not hearing all those different notes come out,
Right.
okay? Because we hear it as one pitch. It's just how we hear sound. So, so that series will go on infinitely, actually.
Okay.
And it's the same for every note. So, like if I pick a D, the next one is an octave above it, and then it's a fifth, and then it's a octave, and then a third. It goes on. So,
And it's so is it more the vibrations or the frequency that's causing the water droplet to oscillate like that?
okay, so then
Or
here, yeah, so now we have to understand more. Okay, so that was just understanding what the harmonic series is.
okay.
Okay, so because we have, just so that we understand, like when we hear one note, there's many notes there. We're not separately perceiving.
Okay, got
Okay,
it.
okay, so that's harmonic series. Now when we talk about resonance, this is different. So resonance is the state of being in vibration. So if something is resonant, it's vibrating very well, easily. Okay, so everything has a resonant frequency or set of resonant frequencies, and this is the frequencies that move it into vibration. So this depends on what it's made of, how big the object is, the mass. And so have you seen the Chladni plates?
Yeah.
There's these metal plates with the sand put on it, and the frequency is put to the metal plate. It comes into vibration, and you see the shape form. So that plate will resonate best at certain frequencies, and those are its resonant frequencies.
Okay.
So there's not a consistent pattern on the plate when that note is sent in there. There's not a consistent pattern because when you change the note, right? Not every note resonates that plate to make those beautiful patterns. It goes in and out of the shapes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And so what is I mean, if it could have that effect on sand that's on a plate
Mm-hmm.
or a drop of water that is levitating,
Mm-hmm.
and you've done, I mean, I mean, you also believe that it has the effect on plants as well, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So I do have an article about that too, because they have some really good science behind this, and they've done sound wave treatment for the plants. Hold on, before I talk about that, and I may just explain one more thing about resonance, because
Sure.
this is another example of resonance. So let's say, do you play instruments or?
I mean, not really.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like sometimes my guitar will be sitting on the other side of the room, and I'll say something, and all of a sudden I hear the strings resonating.
Really.
And it's because my voice has matched a certain resonant frequency to excite those strings into vibration.
Wow.
So that's called sympathetic vibration.
Have you ever heard of that happening before it happened to you?
Actually, I think I think it just happened before I knew what it was. Yeah. Then I always knew like, oh yeah, if I do ooh or something, then I know my guitar likes to like will start to I can hear it like
Wow.
start to ring out. So
Interesting.
it happens with lots of different objects. I mean, especially instruments because instruments are made to like create notes and resonate and the way they're built with the wood and all this. But I've heard it with my gong too, like just talking in the room and all of a sudden someone hits whatever pitch in their voice and then we hear this like the gong is resonating. It's playing by itself. It's actually
Wow.
that vibration that brought it into resonance. So um, that
Crazy.
is one of the theories. This is one of the theories of how sound therapy is helping, in that it helps to bring us into resonance in different levels. I mean, there
Hmm.
could be resonance physically, like with physical matter, but I also think there's resonance energetically. Um, so it's a different level of resonance. Um, so yeah, so that is resonance and that's sympathetic vibration. Um, you were asking about the plants.
Yeah. I know that was, I've been really interested in your work with the plants and how they actually respond to the vibrations as well.
Yeah, so let me share the screen for it. This just real quick so you can see what the article looks like. Because this is a great article. Beyond chemical triggers, evidence for sound evoked physiological reactions in plants. And actually this like takes a lot of different research that has been done, puts it all into this article.
Hmm.
And they talk about how specific frequencies, they even like have a chart like this frequency, this range of frequencies helps with this particular thing. Increased yield. So they're producing more. It helps with growth of the plant. They also found that it helps to the plant to increase its defenses against environmental threats. But what was interesting is that they were able to see that it was changing the sound wave treatment applied to the plants was changing the plants on a cellular level, like genetically. Um, so it was altering its gene expression in
Wow.
favor for the plant's life, in favor of helping the plant to grow or helping it to defend itself.
And that's what shows that, I mean, isn't that kind of proof that plants are in a way aware of, um, like they're able to evaluate their environments?
Yeah, that's kind of controversial, but yeah, but um,
Or is it just a reaction of vibrations? I mean, is
yeah,
that,
because you get into like this idea of plant consciousness, like is a plant like aware that something's happening and then it like alters it, or is it some other like mechanical effect that's happening with like the vibrations and
right?
you know so but there are some recent studies that have come out on plant consciousness that are really interesting
Yeah.
that talk about yeah that plants are able to alter their responses. Here's one interesting one I found about vibration with plants. uh, they did a study with a certain plant that was getting eaten by a caterpillar. And so they found that the plant actually recognized the sound of the caterpillar chewing on its own leaves. So they figured this out by recording the sound of the caterpillar chewing, and they just recorded it and then they put it up to the plant. So the plant's response when the caterpillar would eat it is to like put out this repellent like to make the
Hmm.
caterpillar go off. So they put the recording up to the plant and it did the same thing. It reacted the same way as if the caterpillar was really there. It put that repellent out. So what it was responding to, they, had it very clearly defined. It was the vibrations of the sounds of the caterpillar chewing.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of vibrations in the natural environment of a plant, like the wind, other animals, other insects. But
Hmm.
that particular sound the plant knew, that was not a good guy to be like on around him. So, yeah,
Uh-huh.
so it would defend itself.
Huh. Um, um, how long have you been doing the your own plant music or working on that?
I've been doing, I guess it hasn't been that long. It's only been like a year and a half that I
Is it something
started.
that you want to pursue and keep looking at more into?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like also it could be, I think what happened for me as a music therapist, because I've been working with people most of my career, how does music help people? But in the past couple years, my perspective of music and sound has gotten way bigger
Mhm.
to include like everything in the living world, actually. So like, hey, wait a minute, like we are nature, like we are part of the living world, so how come music can't help these other things too? And so my interest in this got kind of widened. I started playing music with animals.
Mhm.
I saw some really interesting responses with horses.
What were
um,
some of your most interesting observations when playing the animals?
um, I played it, the harp for a little pug, and oh my gosh, she was just adorable. And she sat just right in front of me and just stared at me. And
Really?
that's and she just watched and like was so like entranced. Um, that was also a response I saw with the horse that I played with. She was really curious and she came around my harp and me, and then she just stood there and watched calmly. It was just,
You think the animals are almost like as sensitive to it as humans?
as sensitive, I would say.
Because I think a lot of people might, I don't know, if they see someone playing the harp, I don't know, they might get affected by it, but they're not going to sit there and stare at you in a trance.
Yeah, right. um I I think possibly. I mean, because animals don't process information the same way we do. Well, they're not really processing the music the same way we are either. They're really in the sensation of the vibrations, because all those examples I was playing with live instruments. So their experience live, right? And that's a different way to experience sound.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, so I'd say like with the plant music, I've began to become interested in it as I started looking at how music is sort of networked throughout all the living world. Like when you look at cymatics and you see those patterns, those are patterns you see in nature. Um, so we're seeing that mathematics in the plants. We're seeing it. We can't see it in music, but cymatics helps us to see it, right? Because they're taking photography of that water resonating, vibrating. But so there's mathematics in all of this. There's in us. That's the commonality and pattern.
Mhm. If you think if you played like if you were let's say like to bang, if you were like banging drums or playing a different type of music instead of the harp, that the animals would have reacted in a different way.
Yeah, so animals respond to sound like we do in terms of like fight or flight.
Uh-huh.
So this is interesting to think about because sound can either put us into a deep, relaxed state, or sound can put us into fight or flight too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's giving us information. If we hear a loud crash or something that's telling us, oh, something's wrong, then we try to get out of the way. So if you startle an animal by like boom, boom, like doing some loud noise, they're gonna have that similar, like their nervous system is gonna startle into alert. Mhm.
So, I mean, I just think if people were more conscious of the vibrations that they were taking in, it would affect their mood if they really thought more about it.
Mhm.
I'm sure that you don't listen to much death metal.
No.
That would be,
No.
would that be you like, I mean, how would you respond to that if you were forced to listen to that, or if you just listen to that like on a regular basis? Like it goes against what your resonance is.
Right. Well, here's the one thing about this idea. Because as a music therapist, we were trained to play different types of music for clients depending on their preference, and we actually found that in music therapy research that does make has an impact. If someone likes AC/DC, that's not like death metal. AC/DC is actually pretty like rhythmic, like
Yeah, it's like
has like
rock music, yeah.
yeah. So I would say it's actually pretty organized.
Okay.
So I mean, I think that there could still be a positive effect. But getting back to preferences, like if someone has a preferred music and is helping them, they have an emotional connection, positive emotional response, that could be helpful, even if it's rock music or has some dissonance.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, but like if you look at the whole package of death metal and stuff, like I mean, maybe there's other, maybe it's, I don't know. I think the artist, whoever the artist is, and the intention behind it also makes a big difference too. That's what I think too.
Okay.
So
And then did you watch that video on what's her name? Uh, Candace Pert?
yeah, where did you find that? That was so interesting. I was like,
Um,
I've never heard of that. And she kept saying these dates like 1805 or 1776 or something.
yeah, old. I don't
So
know. I've just been um, I've been researching stuff for a long time, and so
yeah.
I'm able to find just this like random stuff that it's just interesting to me that I try to use that knowledge to
Yeah.
improve what I'm doing here in my program.
Hmm.
But she has an idea that, and I think we can both agree with it, that music, a pattern vibration directly resonates with all the cell receptors in the body, and then all those cell receptors vibrate with all the other cells in the body. And so we pretty much hear not only with our ears, but we hear with our bodies as well. Um, and um, let's see, then the cells vibrate with music and also with the emotions that we feel.
Hmm.
So if you're playing if your harp or your gong or your guitar triggers certain emotions, then the body's not only absorbing the vibrations from the instruments, but it also affects the cells, and then they vibrate with each other.
Mm.
So it's like basically, hearing with your body.
Mm. Hmm.
Do you agree with
There's,
that?
well, there's, I think it's true on different levels. Like, um, here's what it's making me think of. I read an article on this researcher, Dr. Nina Kraus, who was studying how does the brain listen to music. And so they played in a song, like say a Beatles song or something, and they wanted to actually hear what the brain was hearing. And they played it back. I'm not exactly sure how they played it back, but the actual activity, like the neuronal activity in the brain. And it was the same. It was the song that came out. The sound of the brain activity was the song. But it sounded a little bit like, like a digital robot or something,
Yeah,
a
but it
little
was
bit. It wasn't exactly, but it was it.
wow.
So um our brain is, when we take in sound, it's an example of kind of what you're talking about, because our brain is sending information through the neurons, which are all networks of cells, right? So this is the cells in the brain, and they're actually organizing to process the music, and then they have the music themselves. They become the music themselves,
Hmm.
which is rhythm and melody. So, because music is made up of those elements, it's possible for that to happen because we already have that in us. That's how we function, is on rhythm and cycles and frequency.
Hmm. Do you think people could be conditioned to like certain music if they hear it enough times? Like if they hear
But
this,
like,
it's like pop music, you know,
yeah.
they hear it one time and it doesn't resonate with them at all. But when they hear it over and over and over again, eventually they'll just kind of then go with that resonance because
I,
it's been hammered into their heads.
well, I think there has to be a positive association of experience, like the Pavlov dogs, like the conditioned
Hmm.
response, like you get a reward or something when you hear it. If you like already don't have a preference for it and you just want to create a positive association with it, you can with
Yeah.
um, music that you're not um, familiar with. Because there's also other things that impact our listening, like Western music. We're used to hearing major scales and minor scales. We're used to the mainstream and the pop sounds, like on the
Hmm.
radio. Unless you venture off to listen to other different kinds of music, your ear will be tuned and familiar with that. And usually we like what's familiar.
So
Um,
your ear is kind of tuned to it.
yeah, yeah. It's actually really that's it is tuned. So like if someone from a different culture, this happens also with like language too. You're not able to hear all the subtleties in the sound um, if you didn't grow up with it. Like I'm learning classical Indian music, and it is so hard because I can't I didn't grow up with that, and um, there's so many nuances in how it's played, and so my ear isn't trained to that. But the more I listen, the more I can um, learn. But definitely, it's harder for me because I didn't grow up with it.
Yeah. Um,
So
uh, the um, for the Indian music, is it like healing sounds? Are you using it for your practice or just kind of for fun?
I haven't I haven't used it really in depth with my practice because it's really hard. So I'm just learning. I'm learning songs, learning singing, I'm learning the harmonium. Actually, my teacher is translating some of the songs onto the harp. So the most healing things that are about this music are the rags, which are, you can kind of think of them as scales. So like
Hmm.
do re mi fa sol la ti do. And in Western music, we have like four scales or something. I mean, we don't have that many scales in, and they have like thousands of rags. It's so complex. So they have rags for morning, rags for evening, um,
Wow.
rags for time of day. They also, my teacher is in a lineage where they used it to help in healing, and it's kind of a more of like a kind of spiritual, like music for the heart, or music for emotions. So he is teaching me a little bit of that, but um, I haven't applied those particular style in when I work with people. So
Hmm. Um, are you seeing um, more and more interest in music therapy now than there was 5 years ago? Like, does it seem like it's people are seeking this out?
well, I do see it kind of I've been seeing it more like mainstream, like news sources. I like someone will say, "Oh, I just heard about music therapy on CNN," or something. "Oh, I just heard NPR did a story on music therapy in the hospitals," or something. So I think it is coming into mainstream, um, little by little.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And then, of course, then there's like the sound therapy and the sound healing stuff, which is they're all kind of different. So, it gets confusing for people too. Like,
Um, I would think that music therapy is more complex than sound healing.
well, it's kind of like sound healing is within music therapy, right? Like there is healing with
Yeah.
sounds. Yeah, and music therapy, well, yeah, because music therapy is a whole field of study with, yeah, it is more complex.
Um, what else? Um, right. Well, I think that there's the when you relate or when you show the plants and the animals,
Mm.
I think that when people see that, it should make them much more open-minded, not only to use your services if they're feeling stressed out, but it also gives like a really good impression of the connectedness of everything.
Mm. Yeah, I
I
think
think.
yeah, I think it's really important. Um, and I feel like
Whoops.
did I cut off?
Oh, you cut off. You're back.
Okay. I think yeah, there it went back. Okay. I think that people are, sort of wanting to have a more of a connection to nature. The, we like know by instinct that this is part of us. We feel that nature can help to soothe us as well. So this understanding of how nature is related to music and how we are all part of this, it just kind of gives you a bigger picture of like, hey, this is how the natural world is working, and hey, music really is an elemental part in all of this system.
Hmm.
Then, I think it gives us a bigger picture of how music can help us, and that, yeah, like it can, it's an elemental, part of who we are.
Right, and even if they say that the plants don't have any type of like central nervous system, I think everything has kind of just like an inner atmosphere that it might be too fine for or not detectable by science, and that's why a lot of times they'll um, try to reject it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And we can take our own experience or our own observations and see what we can verify for ourselves. And when we see these reactions from plants and animals, it's obvious that something's going on, and we don't need science to tell us that it is or is not real.
Yeah. I mean, definitely we, as human beings, because music is so old, because we've been doing it for like since, early humans, we've been
Hmm.
creating instruments. Like, we, um, know and that it has a power. We experience the power directly when we hear
Hmm.
music that somehow energizes us, or that emotionally moves us, or that reaches us in a way that nothing can.
Yeah.
Or, so we know as humans, we know that it has some power behind it.
Yeah, and that's why I think also the that book, The Secret Life of or plants you mentioned, and that your album is the secret song of plants.
Yeah.
That's just another thing, and the reason why that again that book was loved by the people, not so much
Oh,
by mainstream
yeah.
science, is it goes against their narrative a little bit, but there's something there that resonates
Yeah, that
with people,
resonates.
saying what, like that makes sense to me. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to look at studies and do reports and do all these experiments. Just that makes sense to me.
Yeah, you know what, I feel like there just has to be sort of a balance, and maybe it's because of my training as a neurologic music therapist, because it was very research based. But I felt like, okay, well, let's look at some of the science, but okay, now let's also look at our own personal experiences and some of the things that we're experiencing that may not be able to be measured, like talking about like energetic shifts, energetic changes, emotional um, responses that we have that aren't easily measured. It's hard. It's hard to measure um, how the emotional benefits of music on people because we're all so different and we all respond so differently to different types of music.
Hmm.
So it's hard to research it. But I think that balance, like having, being able to look at some of the research and then also being able to be open to, okay, it's not proved, but we know it's there.
Right.
Eventually we'll be able to get there. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, that's cool. Um, right.
I hope I
Um,
answered your questions on the harmonics.
no, you did it. I'll have to probably watch this a couple times and to let it sink in. But I'm just trying to have these little meetings with people that I've been, following and learning from, and asking questions, and then improving my own understanding of this stuff to see how I can, improve my program and just raise awareness about, the potential of these different healing modalities.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
but yeah, check out the documentary I sent you um,
Okay.
about it's based off that book,
Yeah, I want to look at it.
and it has
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder does the soundtrack to it.
Yeah, okay. I see now. I knew he had written a soundtrack, but I never actually
Yeah,
saw that documentary. Cool.
yeah.
I'll have to look at that. That sounds cool.
All right. Well,
So,
thanks for joining me.
yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, let me know. Reach out if you or
I
send
got,
me some more cool videos because you
uh,
because really this made me like think more about all those harmonics and how it
yeah,
relates.
I'll
Yeah.
keep them coming, and then it's all about connecting the dots. Sometimes you can just get one video or one piece of information that can help you continue your research or put some things together.
Mhm. Cool.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
See you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.